Hello, my name is Philip Plotch, and I'm the principal researcher here at the Eno Center for Transportation. Welcome to the latest in our series of webinars. Eno is an independent, nonpartisan, and nonprofit think tank that shapes public debate on multimodal transportation issues. Today, we're going to talk about how to create successful bike share systems. Successful includes being financially sustainable, because nobody wants to see a bike share program get started, attract a lot of users, and then run out of money. We're going to hear from 4 bike share experts. We're going to start with Sam Herr. She's the head of the North American Bike Share and Scooter Share Association. And then 3 people who run successful bike share programs: Wafia Murray in Philadelphia, Mia Cahote in Vancouver, and Benny Foltz in Nebraska. Our guests will each talk for a few minutes, and then we'll take questions from all of you. Whenever you want, you can enter questions in the Q&A box on the right side of your screen, and we'll get to as many of those questions as possible. We hope you enjoy the webinar, and you can help support us by donating or becoming an email member. Just check out the link in the chat box. And with that, start with Sam.
Great, thanks, Phil. Thanks for the introduction. As Phil mentioned, I'm Sam Herr, Executive Director of the North American Bike Share and Scooter Share Association. Really happy to be here. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I'm thrilled to be able to talk about shared micromobility with all of you today, and also just want to thank Eno Center and Phil for the invitation. So thanks so much. I've been asked to keep my presentation quite brief, so I just want to say here at the top, I'm going to be very high level in what I share right now. And NABSA has many resources on all of the topics that I'm going to cover. So invite everybody to dig into the NABSA website to learn more about the topics that I'll be brushing on high level today. So move on to the next slide. For folks new to NABSA, or North American Bike Share and Scooter Share Association, which it's a lot easier to say NABSA, we're a membership-based cross-sector association for everyone involved in shared micromobility. And we primarily work across 5 focus areas. We have an annual conference. We do education, like our own virtual events as well. And we have a knowledge share resource database. We do a lot of network cultivation. In fact, all the presenters today are part of the NABSA community and are members of NABSA and are or have fulfilled roles on our board and been part of our conference and things like this. We do advocacy and we do research and data. Our biggest thing that we do is every year we put out an annual shared micromobility state of the industry report, which you can see the cover of the last one that we put out, and that's annual. We also put out a lot of other types of resources, and we'll go to the next slide. So real quickly here, wanting to share a bit about the development of the shared micromobility industry in the US. Around 2008, 2009 was the first bike share systems in the US. In 2015, we had the first e-bike share system. In 2017, we really started to see the first dockless bike share get off the ground with the first fully privately owned and operated system models in the US. Then by 2018, we really saw scooter share begin proliferating across the US and e-bike share really start to trend. And then 2019, we really hit a boom moment in the industry. There was an influx of providers, aggregate ridership highs. It was a really big peak year. Then, of course, the pandemic hit. By 2022, we returned to our pre-pandemic aggregate ridership levels. And also we saw the first electrified stations implemented. And then in 2023, by then we were seeing consolidation in full swing in the industry and also still ridership highs. So that's kind of where we're at now, and we'll move to the next slide. So want to say here that for the foundational information about shared micromobility, NABSA has a really great resource called Shared Micromobility 101. I have a little screenshot there for you with a red arrow pointing to where you can find that resource. So I want to just say there's a lot more about foundations to say, and if you are wanting to get started, that's a great resource to start with. But just top level here, I've been asked to say a little bit about the models. And so you can really boil it down to about 4 models, but I want to say here that for the words public, different types of organizations can fill that role, like a city department, transit agency, MPO, COG, etc. And as well as using the word private here, really just denoting that it's not public. So it could be a nonprofit or for-profit entity that is fulfilling that role. And so with that in mind, you can kind of say there are 4 general models: publicly owned and operated, publicly owned and privately contracted, publicly administered, but privately owned and operated, and then privately owned and operated. And you really want to consider your goals for that, as well as who the champions are in your community. And we'll go to the next slide. So want to move into talking about trends. So I mentioned that NABCA puts out a annual report each year, State of the Industry report. It's always retrospective. So right now we are crunching on the 2023 numbers, and that's going to be out later this summer. But looking at what we have so far collected for 2022, you can see here that we, as I mentioned before, the overall aggregate ridership across North America hit pre-pandemic levels in 2022. And also 2022, we saw the most cities with systems to date. And so looking a little bit, crystal balling the 2023 numbers, I'd say that ridership is extremely high. So we'll see at or above those numbers, I would say. And then we have, with the consolidation and sort of other industry ebbs and flows, there's been some contraction of number of cities. We're not exactly sure if that's going to hit in the 2023 or 2024 numbers in terms of the trends, but we are looking in the next few years to probably see that shrink a little bit. We'll go to the next slide. So also, no surprise, overall systems with e-scooters are increasing, as well as systems with e-bikes on the whole are increasing. And we'll go to the next slide. So speaking of e-bikes, obviously a major trend. Interestingly, during the pandemic, we saw a decrease in overall ridership, but for e-bikes, that was a steady increase throughout the entire time. You can see the graph there. And then transit integration, another major theme, really from the beginning, but we're seeing this become more of a trend through time. And you can see there 64% of riders report that they use shared micromobility to connect to transit. And we'll move on to the next slide. Electrification, really big theme in transportation more generally. Shared micromobility is no exception. So really creating, not just having the electric devices, but also the infrastructure to support that. NABCA has a white paper out. Again, you can check that out on our website. And then public funding for shared micromobility. So overall, there hasn't been a lot of public funding in shared micromobility, particularly in the US. However, that is starting to change, and there are government agencies that are putting money into shared micromobility, and that's a growing trend. NABCA actually just this year has been producing several resources on that topic as well. So invite you to check those out as well. And we'll go to the next slide. Wanted to put in front of everybody the US federal funding programs that are available for use for shared micromobility. So again, more information on our website and our advocacy toolkit, and we have a US funding resource there. But feel free to take a snapshot of this, look into these programs if you are looking for funding to support shared micromobility from the federal government. And with that, next slide. As I mentioned, NABCA is a membership-based organization. So if you want to learn a lot more about shared micromobility and start networking and getting peer-to-peer information exchanging and all of those good things, consider joining us. And then next slide. Also, we have a conference coming up this year in Philadelphia, October 7th through 9th. So invite everybody to join us there. And next slide is how you can contact us, and I'll turn it over. Thanks. Oh, and I think we're going to Wafia Murray. So Wafia, take it away.
Thanks, Sam. Hi, everyone. Really looking forward to having the NABCA conference here in Philadelphia. So I hope I see several of you here. Again, my name is Wafia Murray. I am the Indigo Program Manager for the City of Philadelphia's Office of Transportation and Infrastructure Systems. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of background about Indigo. It is a public bike share program. We have a dock-based system, so you're able to check out a bike from one dock and return it to another. Indigo is owned by the City of Philadelphia. We have a concessionaire contract with our operator, Bicycle Transit Systems, who handles the day-to-day maintenance and oversight of the system. And our lead sponsor is Independence Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Next slide, please. So just some facts about Indigo. We launched in 2017. We started with 60 stations and 600 bikes. We now have over 250 stations and over 2,400 bikes. We have a mix of both classic and electric bikes in our fleet. We've had over 7 million trips since launch, and we have over 12,000 active pass holders. Over the next 4 to 5 years, Indigo is really committed to continuing to expand our fleet to 375 stations and over 3,700 bikes. We're continuing to incorporate energy saving docking technology. And last but definitely not least, continuing to invest in equity and community engagement. So just wanted to share that the City of Philadelphia is a partner in the Better Bikeshare Partnership, BBSP for short, which is a national initiative focused on equity and access and shared micromobility as a whole. So I do recommend, if you want to learn more about shared micromobility and how to incorporate equity within that, to check out the Better Bikeshare Partnership. And just also wanted to share that Indigo has a discounted pass option called our Access Pass program, which provides a discounted membership for anyone with a PA Access card. And currently over 18% of our pass holders have applied for the PA Access program. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, community engagement and outreach is really the cornerstone of our work. If you're looking to create a bike share program that is accessible for everyone, you have to incorporate equity. Some of the ways we do that is by continuing to expand with equity at the forefront. So making sure that our stations are not just located in downtown, center city, or universities, but also in neighborhoods, so that people can effectively have access to get to where they need to go and back home. We also offer free bike safety education and encouragement classes. One of the barriers that we heard when doing our research about bike share back in 2015 is that oftentimes people don't use it because they just don't feel safe, or they don't have a lot of knowledge about how to bike, or they haven't ridden a bike in years. So just providing safe spaces to give people that encouragement and teach people, about the rules of the road, how to plan out your route, how to do so effectively, really goes a long way with bringing in new folks to the shared micromobility world. We also have a very active and strong Indigo Community Ambassador program, where we hire community champions to help spread the word about Indigo within their community. These are paid positions, and we are currently in our 9th year of Indigo Community Ambassadors. We have a local mini grant program where we offer stipends to nonprofit community organizations doing great work within their community, as a way to support folks, not just when it comes to bike, but also to support communities with other needs they may have, even beyond transportation. Last but not least, we have a program called Wheels to Work, where we provide individuals free workforce development skills, such as resume building, LinkedIn training, interview skills, in addition to bike safety education, so that folks could have safe, healthy, active transportation to get back and forth to jobs, to get back and forth to interviews, and all of those awesome things. We also have a suggested station tool. So as I mentioned, equitable system expansion is important. So this is a way to hear from folks about where they would like a station, so that we can help meet the needs of our users while we are expanding. That is all. Thank
you. Thanks, Wafi. Yeah, I think I'm up next. Hi, everyone. My name is Benny Fultz. I'm the CEO of Roam Share, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that exists for the development, promotion, and operation of bike sharing programs for the benefit of general public, aimed at promoting health and quality of life, as well as mitigating climate change and promoting the use of sustainable and equitable forms of transportation. Next slide. We are primarily in, if you want to advance one more, and one more. We are primarily in Nebraska with the 3 programs that we operate, but our Heartland Bike Share flagship program in the Omaha Metro also is in Council Bluffs, Iowa. And I'll talk about each of these individual programs. Next slide. So Heartland Bike Share is the Omaha Metro. We have over 80 stations. We relaunched last year as an all-electric bike share fleet. So we have over 400 bikes that are all Class 1 electric pedal assist bikes. And we have a partnership with the city of Omaha. And that operates in 4 cities, 5 counties, and 2 states, has a very wide footprint. Our program in the capital, Lincoln, Nebraska, is called Bike Link, which is 21 stations and 125 bikes. With a hybrid model. And then the Valentine program is just 1 station and 8 bikes, and is known as North America's most rural bike share station. Next slide. So Valentine, I'll actually be heading out there tomorrow. It's about 6 hours from Omaha in north central Nebraska. It's located on a cowboy trail, and it's bringing a new demographic to what Bikeshare is. And next slide. And then, so BikeLink, we did launch this in 2018. City of Lincoln owns all the equipment, and they pay my organization to operate it for them. So that's a bulk of the fundraising. The City of Lincoln does keep all of the system-generated revenue as well as all of the sponsorship revenue. So that's kind of a different business model than my other two programs. Next slide. And then, so the rest of these will be Heartland Bikeshare specific. Again, this is the Omaha Metro program, our largest. Right now, the city of Omaha owns half of the equipment, and I'm transferring all the ownership to them for a variety of reasons, primarily all to save money. I do keep Heartland Bikeshare does keep all the system generated revenue and sponsorship revenue. Next slide. You can see our year-over-year growth. This is important, especially if you look at the dip in 2018 to then the year-over-year growth since 2019. We deployed our first e-bikes in 2018. And then, like I mentioned, last year, we relaunched as all electric. And so you can see it's very evident the success of just the e-bike usage. Next slide. We continue to partner with all of the local transit options in our state. This is an example of our rapid bus transit we call Orbit here. We partnered with Metro Transit and secured funding from a variety of sources to install new bike share stations at 12 of the Orbit stops. Next slide. Omaha has a streetcar coming, so we're partnering with the Streetcar Authority, being proactive on the construction and where we can strategically put new bike share stations to help facilitate that first last mile. Next slide. And a big part of what I've been doing recently is advocating to share what bike share is. Nebraska consistently ranks as 50th in bicycle friendliness. And so a big part of my role is just educating folks on what bike share is, right? And so I reach out to all of our local politicians and try to take them on a bike share ride. It's proven to be quite effective. Next and final slide. So much that I got a state senator to sponsor and introduce a bill this year. This was, I believe, one of the first, if not the first, bike share specific bill at the state level. We got it in front of a committee, and we provided a lot of positive testimony. Unfortunately, the bill did stall and did not get out of the committee, but I have confirmation that the same senator will be reintroducing this bill with a little more detail, and hopefully we can get it out. And that's the end of my slides, and now I'll pass it to Mia from Vancouver.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mia Kohut. I'm the CEO of Vancouver Bikeshare. I hope everyone can understand me and through my Canadian accent. Our system here is called Mobi by Rogers. Rogers is our key sponsor. We were founded in 2016, so our system turns 8 years old this year. We are a station-based bike share, and we are a public-private partnership. And we're the public-private partnership where we own and operate our bike share system, but we work very closely with the city who administers the program. And actually, we got off the ground thanks to a grant from the city of Vancouver in 2016. They gave a $5 million capital grant, which was kind of instrumental in getting our system launched. And they've been helpful since then. We did a second expansion, and they helped fund that. And then the third expansion that we've done was funded by us. And now, unfortunately, the grant pool is a little bit dry, which makes it a little bit more challenging for us to expand, but we're hopeful that we'll be able to find some partnerships in the near future. Our system, we have 2,000 classic bikes, 600 e-bikes, and 250 stations. Our e-bikes are completely grid powered, so we do not swap batteries. We electrify our stations, and this is great for the long term of operations for e-bikes. Currently, we have about 10% of our stations electrified, and ideally, we could get to at least 20% to really help with those operational efficiencies. Our system, we get about 2 to 3 trips per day per vehicle. E-bikes are definitely the more popular choice with about 3 trips per day. We had, a bit of a slowdown during the pandemic, like most systems did, but then we had a full recovery. And when we launched e-bikes in 2022, that was when things really hit the ground running. And last year we had our first year with over 1 million rides, and we had about a 30% increase in our ridership with the introduction of e-bikes from 2022 to 2023. So I echo the sentiments of my fellow presenters, where e-bikes are definitely a big game changer for the bike share industry. The other important component, and something we're proud of in Vancouver, is our equity program. We launched an equity program in 2018 where we offer cash-based, cardless, very significantly reduced memberships, $20 a year for unlimited 30-minute rides on classic bikes. We've also introduced a youth pass for youth aged 12 to 18, because we believe that encouraging young people to start riding bikes is a great way to make that early adoption for people riding. And we've also introduced a pass with for persons with disabilities. So if someone has a designated disability, they can receive a $20 annual pass and have unlimited access to e-bikes, 60-minute e-bikes as well, which has been a real game changer for the people of Vancouver. We have about 15% of our annual members who are on the equity pass, and a lot of these members are super users, so they use the bikes all the time, which is really, I think, an important component of offering bike share, especially if we think of bike share as an extension of public transit, which we certainly do here in Vancouver, but I think North America has a long way to go as far as true integration of bike share as part of the public transit system, and supporting it with necessary subsidies so that it can really be an extension of public transit. So with that, I'll turn it back to Phil for the Q&A.
Hey, thanks so much to all of you. So we've gotten a lot of questions in, and feel free to add more questions to this. So I want to start with the last thing, Mia, that you mentioned about integrating it with public transit. Some people asked about fares, if there's a way to integrate the fares between the bikes and transit. And also, what does it actually mean to integrate with public transit, right? That could be, so Benny mentioned sort of, and Mia mentioned sort of working with partners, but what does that mean exactly?
I don't mind taking a first stab at this, because I think there's definitely different levels of transit. Like in some cities, the public transit agency actually owns the bike share system. And I mean, that's going to be your closest full integration possibilities, because at that point you can start combining fares with bike share and transit. I can say personally in Vancouver, about 50 to 60% of our trips are combined with transit trips. And right now we're working on a mass project, which is mobility as a service. And so we have one card, one app that links public transit with bike share and car sharing services. And this is a pilot program in Vancouver. So integrated means, it can mean fare, like your fares combined, but it also is important that your trips are very seamless if you're taking a bike share trip to public transit, because at the end of the day, people are going to choose what's most convenient.
Yeah. So seamless means locating the bike share right next to the entrance and the exits of the stations. Is that what that means?
That certainly helps.
Okay. Great. Anybody else have thoughts about integrating transit with bike shares?
I'll just mention one other thing. So Mia, I think really great answer. One other thing I'll mention is, so there's as you're saying, Phil, there's the infrastructure, kind of hard infrastructure on the ground, but also in software. So sometimes there are shared platforms and ways to locate trips together and things like this as well, in addition to everything that Mia just said.
Okay. And I suppose also apps on origins and destinations. If you're going from one place to another, it can say you could use the shared bike, then you could use transit, and then you can use a shared bike. I assume those exist in certain places?
They do. It's pretty new in North America, but you're starting to see more cities that are piloting and adopting that technology.
Okay.
I'll just mention one. Sorry, go ahead, Phil.
I was just going to ask Mia your thoughts about integrating with transit, because SEPTA is obviously very big in Philadelphia.
Yeah, so we are partnering with our local transit authority on an app so that one app can access bike share and transit trips. So that's a big first step forward. But I mean, my pie in the sky dream for North America is that bike share trips are just going to be integrated with transit. So, you know, you have your card, you take your bus, and then you hop on a bike, and it all costs you the same. It all costs you the same. Wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be, yeah. And Wafia, I mentioned SEPTA.
Yeah, so we do not currently have a transit integration, whereas you can use, you know, a SEPTA pass to check out both a bike share bike and a transit trip. We do partner very closely with our transit systems for first last mile solutions, as we talked earlier about making sure we have stations that are near frequently used transit stops. And we also do cross promotion and things like that. So we do.
Okay. All right. We got some questions about e-bikes, and somebody, I guess, who is very familiar with Nebraska said, Benny, all of your bikes are e-bikes now. And he was wondering why that decision to go all e-bikes.
Sure. So and just to confirm, my Heartland bike share program, which is the Omaha Metro, is all e-bikes. Lincoln still has a hybrid model with 100 classic bikes and 25 e-bikes. But the same data when I was a hybrid model for Heartland Bike Share existed, whereas the e-bikes are preferred nearly 100% of the time over the classic bikes. Oh. And the only time the classic bikes were being ridden were because there were no e-bikes available, or the rider just didn't understand that there was a difference. So the classic bikes were just sitting there when the e-bikes were available, not being ridden. Omaha is surprisingly hilly. I know most people don't think that or know that if you haven't been here. So the e-bikes make a huge difference on the hills here. But Lincoln is actually flat, and we still see this increased usage over the e-bikes. You know, we have 25 e-bikes, but they're getting, you know, 70 to 80% of all the trips.
Okay. I was taught a long time ago, there's no such thing as a stupid question. So I'm going to ask a question. How do you, when you go to a dock, they don't seem to be usually electrified, although apparently in Vancouver, you said 10 to 20% are electrified now. So how are the bikes, how do you recharge the bikes? Do you have to pull them all out, take them somewhere, charge them, and then bring them back?
Yeah, well, I'll answer how we do it, because a new thing that Sam had mentioned is stations that are charging the bikes themselves. I currently do not have any of those stations. So my team monitors the usage of the specific battery on that bike. And we know after X amount of minutes ridden, we go and swap that battery that's on the bike with a fully charged one, bring it back to our shop. Then we have a charging center where we charge all the e-bike batteries.
Got it. Got it. So just another question about the e-bikes in Nebraska. Does it change your financial model having e-bikes? I assume they're more expensive to buy and more expensive to maintain.
Yep. Correct on both. But we're also seeing a significant amount of more trips, right? And that's what's important. It costs more, but we are moving more people around to where they want to be via the bike. So we definitely see it as a worthwhile investment in public transportation. And, you know, I think the future will be e-bikes in nearly all bike share programs.
Huh. And Mia, Wafia, do you see that same trend more and more towards e-bikes?
So yes, since we launched our e-bikes, we definitely see huge increase in ridership on e-bikes. I mean, it's understandable. It allows people to take longer trips with less effort. We've really seen a lot of usage in seniors, as well as folks who live in neighborhoods that are farther from like downtown center city or resources that people often gravitate to. So it's been a real game changer for our bike share system. We do still have people requesting the classic bikes. I think it goes into your initial question of pricing, because the e-bikes do cost more to operate. We do have to add an additional fee. for the e-bike. So something we've been really working on here in Philadelphia is trying to figure out what's the best pricing model so that we can provide folks with this service, knowing that the industry is trending towards e-bikes, where we're making them where it's still affordable for people to use an e-bike. And we're also continuing to like rebalance our classic bike fleet for those who do just want a classic bike and it's more affordable for a classic bike as well.
Okay. And in Vancouver, is it changing your financial model too and bringing a lot more riders in?
Yeah, 100%. And I'll echo that. I think if everyone had a choice between an e-bike and a classic bike and the pricing was the same, they would choose the e-bike. The only reason people are still choosing classic bikes is because of the pricing differential model that exists in a lot of North American systems because of the lack of subsidies. Like if you look to some bigger cities, European models, for example, like in Paris or in Marseille, like they have 100% the e-bike fleets and they're ridden all the time. And in other cities that don't have half e-bike fleets, they can't keep up with the e-bike demand, and because they don't have the differential pricing that we need to have here to support our systems. So e-bikes are a total game changer, and they'll get more people riding and people are going to choose them over classic bikes all the time.
Interesting. So Sam, I have a couple of questions for you that have come in. So the first is, if you're thinking about starting a new program for Bikeshare, do you think about docked systems, kind of a little more traditional, or the dockless ones, which we see around also? In some places, you see both. How should a city choose between those two?
Yeah, so there's really no one-size-fits-all solution here. As even on this call, we're seeing that there are a lot of differences in geography and sort of what's going on in each local community and city. And so you can really think of it as options and tools, and you want to think about your goals, what you're trying to do with it, what your needs are in your city, and then pick the way that makes the most sense. And so it's sort of a menu. And as you're mentioning, some places have both docked and dockless, and some places just have docked or just have dockless and things like this. So it's really a menu that you can choose based on what your goals are, what your community needs are, and things like this. I did want to make one add-on comment to the this electrification e-bike topic that we're talking about, and I just wanted to underscore, as I heard Mia and Wafia mention, that public funding and subsidizing. So we're talking about the increased costs related to e-bikes. So public funding can really help support the expansion of e-bikes by, helping to add funding to support the operations and the cost that takes. So I just want to sort of underscore the power that public funding and subsidy can have to really doing that.
Okay. I have a question, and anybody can take this one. There are some cities that do a better job at providing good bike infrastructure, more bike lanes, safer bike lanes. And I'm wondering if bringing a bike share program in sort of increases the constituency for better bike lanes. So you might have decent bike lanes. And then when you bring a bike share program in, does it sort of spur the improvement of that bike network? Anybody want to answer that question?
Yeah, I can start. I think it definitely could. I would say here in Philadelphia, being able to have a bike share system, it helps to have more folks advocating for the need for bike lanes and bike infrastructure. I think bike share also allows folks who are new to biking to be able to try biking out and see how it can fit within their day-to-day life. And then, folks who were like, oh no, biking's not for me. Folks in my neighborhood don't bike, but they're able to try it out and see, and then say, oh, okay, yeah, I can see how this can be useful. I can see the need for, shared roads and things like that. So it helps to advocate for why we need more biking infrastructure, which is always important. So I would say in that sense, it does help the conversation and the discussions for more bike infrastructure to support more cyclists on the ground.
Mm. Has anybody else seen a change?
Yeah, so in Omaha, we installed our first protected bike lane, and it went in as a pilot project. And I relocated 5 bike share stations. on the bike lane, and we saw a 70% increase in trips along that route. And we used that data to turn that pilot project into a permanent project.
And how about in Vancouver?
Yeah, so our busiest stations are along bike routes, and we definitely want to site our stations on those bike routes because people need a safe place to ride. And bike share users can be new users. They can be more intimidated than your classic mammal riding cyclists. And therefore, bike infrastructure is such a critical and crucial part. They go hand in hand, but and not all cities have the great bike infrastructure. So it's good to get started with bike share, but I would say bike infrastructure is crucial for the success of a bike share program.
Actually, that was my next question for Sam. So somebody asked about what you need to think about before starting a bike share program. And I wanted to start with that bike infrastructure. Is that really critical, do you think, before you even start the program?
Yeah, that's just funny. Funny because it's sort of an age-old question, especially the early in adopters cities in the U.S. As Mia's saying, is everyone is saying here on the call. I mean, infrastructure really, really helps, but also it shouldn't be a limiting factor to not start a bike share program. You don't want to sort of wait for the pipeline of 10 years down the road, getting going with your bike infrastructure. So I would say it's a balance, and that also we've seen that bike share really promotes developing more infrastructure as well. And so I would think of it more as a virtuous cycle rather than, one thing has to go before the other thing.
Yeah. And
do them together. Yeah. Go ahead, Benny.
And I would use that as not just a new bike share program, but an existing program and expanding into new communities that does not have infrastructure. We installed a bike share station at one of Omaha's busiest intersections, and we caught a little bit of guff for it. There were no crosswalks even at this busy intersection, and we now have crosswalks there. It's still not a well-utilized or one of our safest, I would say, bike share station locations, but it's getting better. And you can't wait the 10 years for the infrastructure to be built. You got to keep progressing.
Yeah, I would just add that, yes, infrastructure is really important and something you should think about when starting a bike share system. But I think something else to think about, which may even be more important, is really getting to know your users and what they think about bike share, how they feel about it, what potential barriers they may have to not use the station, and really thinking about ways that you can try to alleviate some of those barriers so that you can create a bike share or share micromobility system that everyone can use. So some safety is definitely one that comes up. So that's why infrastructure plays a role, but also things like affordability. You've heard on this call different options to help make bike share more affordable, more accessible, and just more comfortable for people of all different ages, abilities, races, ethnicities, etc., to be able to use it. So I think in addition to the infrastructure, also knowing your residents, your city, those who are using it, and being able to serve your customer base most effectively.
Right. So we've gotten some questions about safety and theft. So let me start with safety. So when I thought of safety initially, I thought about e-bikes going a little bit faster, and that could be a safety issue. Someone asked about battery safety and that being a problem. So somebody want to sort of start by talking about those two things, about the battery and the bicycle safety? Want to start with Vancouver? How about that?
Sure. So our batteries batteries have a really bad rap in the e-bike world right now, and a lot of those battery fires are caused by misuse, whether it's the incorrect charging plug or things like that. So I think proper battery handling is really important. But most of these devices, as long as they're certified and built properly, I don't think that this is really going to be a problem. In Vancouver, our batteries are totally encapsulated and we charge at stations, we're not handling the batteries. So we haven't had an issue at all. And as far as safety, I think, the speed of the e-bike is an important thing to consider when launching an e-bike program. I'm not sure what the limit is in the US. In Canada, our e-bikes cap out at 24 kilometers an hour, and I'm sorry I don't have that conversion to miles, but it's less than what even the provincial regulated speed is, and I think that kind of keeping the speeds lower helps with any kind of alleviating fears of e-bikes going too quick on bike lanes and roads.
Okay. And how about Philadelphia? So the safety, both for the bicyclists and associated with the battery.
Yes, we also take safety very seriously with our e-bikes. The team at Bicycle Transit, they really monitor the e-bikes and the batteries very closely. Our e-bikes are also capped at 17 miles per hour, so they're not going super fast. It's more of a pedal assist as opposed to like, a motor so that you're flying down the street. So it's not that. Yeah, we take a lot of precautions in terms of e-battery maintenance and all of those things to make sure that we're maintaining a safe fleet in terms of safety around e-bikes. And then in terms of safety overall, as I mentioned, we offer free bike safety education classes where we give people an opportunity to come and learn about the rules of the road, because a lot of people don't know that there are rules for cyclists. And so educating folks about those rules, talking to them about how to be safe, how to plan out your route ahead of time, and all of the things as well.
Okay. Benny, anything to add to what was already said about safety?
No, I mean, yeah, pretty much the same. Battery management is obviously very important. Safety is very important. You got to follow some guidelines, but we use we use the same battery for all of our e-bikes, and we've had zero issues. I did have to install a electrical charging station inside my shop and get it approved by the fire marshal, but like you'd have to do that for any utility, right? And then we just follow the safety guidelines that we have for e-bikes. And as far as safety on the road using the e-bikes, I mean, we've seen an increased usage rate. So we've seen increased number of crashes, but the ratio is the exact same. So, of course, we're going to see a few more crashes if we're getting busier, but it hasn't been an exponential increase.
Okay. The last question I think we might have time for is theft. People worry that they set up a program and people start stealing the bikes. So why don't we start, Benny, you start this time.
Yeah.
Is that an issue?
Yeah. So when we first deployed e-bikes, we did not have asset trackers on them or GPS devices, and they would start disappearing, and we had no idea where they were. It was a struggle. I had to do fundraising efforts, and I piloted 5 different GPS vendors, and we actually, use a third-party vendor that we install on the e-bikes right now to track them, because it's a real deal, right? We were losing about 4 bikes a month. And then since we've deployed asset trackers, we've only lost 1.5. So that's a significant deal. And we deployed the asset trackers 3 years ago now. But it is something to be mindful of. A retrieval or recovery process must be part of your plan within Bikeshare.
And Wafia, in Philadelphia, what's going on with theft?
Yeah, I mean, I like to think that the bikes aren't lost. People have just forgotten to return them. And so very similar to what Benny said in the beginning, when we first launched our e-bikes, a lot of folks forgot to return the bikes. And so we had to, really be more clever and more strategic about how we protect our assets. Having the tracking helps. We also have hired an asset recovery team to, for those who don't remember to bring the bikes back, to, go and collect them, to bring them back for them. I would say a majority of the bikes that do go missing from the fleet tend to come back. It's just you have to remind people it's bike share, not bike own. So you need to return it so that other people can use it. But yes, we've gotten a lot, clever with a lot more clever with how we secure our assets, and that has helped us really reduce the amount of bike theft over the years.
Okay. And in Vancouver, I assume you have issues
Oh,
too?
we don't have any. Canadians don't steal things. No, but honestly, this is where station-based bike sharing really has advantages, because those docks are pretty secure. So as long as someone's returning a bike properly, it's not going anywhere. We do have bikes that go missing. Most of them end up coming back, and maybe they don't look the same as they did when they first went on that ride. But and then we also implement fees, so we'll know if like someone hasn't returned a bike properly. We kind of have a system in place, so we'll be able to follow up with that person. Could result in warning, fines, suspensions.
Okay. Well, we've run out of time. And I do want to say, looking at the panelists here, that I'm envious of Sam's job, that idea that you get to go around the country trying out different bike share systems. Sounds like a lot of fun. So I appreciated everybody's insight today. I want to thank you all for your participation, everybody out there for all your great questions. You'll be able to find a recording of the webinar on our website. It's enotrans.org. And a recording will also be emailed to everybody who registered. Please make sure to sign up for our mailing list. You can gain access to Eno Transportation Weekly. You can find out about webinar announcements, report releases, and more. And reminder that check out the link in the chat box about donating or becoming a member. And keep your eyes out on our website for upcoming webinars. Our next one is going to reveal important lessons from transit historians. Thanks again, and have a great day.